Good morning. Happy AZSCA Conference. Happy National School Counselor Week. We're so glad you could join us for our session this morning. Our session is Counseling in a Title I School, Connections that Endure a Pandemic and Beyond. My name is Cynthia Howell, and my colleague and co-presenter is Janine Ballou, and she'll introduce herself to you in just a few minutes. Just some quick information about us. I have been a school counselor for the past 6 years in the Chandler Unified School District. Prior to that, I was an elementary school teacher for 4 years, having taught kindergarten and third grade. During this pandemic time, my district chose to primarily be on site, so that's where I have been counseling. We also wanted to start our session out with just some brief information and a brief description of Title I programming. Most of you that are probably in attendance are well versed in Title I. However, in case there is someone that isn't as familiar with it, we would just like to provide you with some information. So Title I programming is actually the largest federal aid program for public schools. It provides additional funding for disadvantaged and underserved children. Its goal is to close the achievement gap between low-income and moderate to high-income students. It aims to do so by providing before and after school programming, even intersession programming, providing extra reading and math intervention programs, and hiring highly qualified instructional coaches, highly qualified staff as well. A big portion of the Title I programming is family engagement. At my site, we have a person who is a parent liaison, and we also have a family resource center where during a typical school year, parents can come in and learn about different resources that we can offer. Our site also, and most Title I sites, provide professional development for families, the community that they are in, teachers, and their support staff. We also wanted to define some information about Title I learners. Who are these students? What might they be coming to the classroom experiencing? So the U.S. Department of Education defines some of these students as possibly being in high poverty schools, students with a limited English proficiency, students who are migrants or coming from those types of backgrounds. It may also be children with disabilities, neglected or delinquent children, as well as minority and non-minority groups. I'm going to pass it off to my co-presenter so she can introduce herself and then also talk about the data behind Title I programming and how this pandemic has affected them.
Hello, my name's Janine Ballou, and I'm so happy to be here today on behalf of all of our Title I learners in the state of Arizona. So a little bit about my background. I've been a classroom teacher for 10 years. I have been a counselor in an international school in Vietnam for grades K through 12. Here in Chandler, I have been a site-based counselor at the elementary level, and currently I am the elementary counselor at our Chandler Online Academy. So I'm purely in a virtual setting living this role. So let's start by taking a minute to look at the data that we have coming out of the pandemic and how that affects our Title I learners. So if we think about the MAP test, the test from NWEA that's given 3 times a year, and if we look at the data from that, it suggests that the overall pivot to online learning really hasn't affected students as largely as we thought it would. Reading, it's had very little impact on reading growth and only moderate impact on math gains, only dropping it by 5 to 10 percentile points. However, it's so important to note that there are huge red flags here because this information is very misleading. 25%, 1 in 4 students that took the MAP test in the spring are just missing from the fall data. And these students are more than likely our marginalized students, our Title I students, our students that would typically perform lower pre-pandemic, and now they are just missing from all of this data. And we know that can affect funding and how we approach education and move forward. So basically, the impacts of this pandemic on our Title I learners is unknown at this point, and we'll just have to keep a really close eye on that data and tracking as we move forward.
As Janine mentioned, COVID-19 has and will continue to affect our Title I learners. How do we counter this? What can we do? In this session, we wanted to provide practical, easy-to-use strategies and ideas to connect and support our Title I communities through this time. We realize that there's great variability in districts. Some have been virtual this entire year, others are hybrid, and everywhere in between. We're confident that our ideas that we present to you today can meet you where you are. The first idea I would like to share is to send care packages. A very simple idea, perhaps a bit old school, but how exciting is it for our students to receive mail? Many have expressed how much they've enjoyed receiving something personally addressed to them. Each care package included a personalized letter, as you can see in the picture, where I expressed how much I was thinking of them or how much I missed seeing them, and reassuring them that their school family was still there for them. I made sure to include my contact information, my phone number, my Google phone number, a link to my Bitmoji office, my email, anything that I could think of. I often would make my care packages themed. At the beginning of a pandemic, I sent a story explaining the coronavirus. You all, I'm sure, have seen it floating around the internet. I sent links to brain pop videos that could help provide factual information about what was happening in our world. From there on, I used other themes, but always have included practical information or strategies for them to use. Some of the greatest ideas we can find in unique places, such as Instagram. I found a post by a kindergarten teacher where she had made virtual hugs to send students, as you can see in the picture. I sent these and received such wonderful feedback from students and families. Families even shared that they made their own virtual hugs to send to loved ones in other states. I have sent postcards. I've sent QR codes to virtual spaces. Our district made a virtual calming room. This was a wonderful tool to send to my students. In another care package, I sent lip smackers or smelly spots to help them when they felt worried or anxious. I've sent birthday stickers, mindful coloring, coloring books, sky's the limit. It's important to note that I sent care packages to my one-on-one students and to the most vulnerable students. As the pandemic went on, teachers informed me of students that perhaps were not on my radar, but who needed some extra love and care. As I am sure you all realize, this pandemic has affected everyone, and students who I would not have considered vulnerable quickly rose to the top of my list. Another idea to connect with students and families, or even to find missing students, conduct home visits. I know this isn't the most novel idea, but it can be incredibly useful. I cannot express how important safety is when going on a home visit, especially during a pandemic. Some helpful tips I can share from experience. Go in pairs, don't ever go alone. Stay 6 feet away. Wear a mask or double mask. If you know someone in the household or family is sick, refrain from going. This idea helped us locate so many students and gave us critical information about where missing families had gone. Often if the family didn't answer the door, the neighbor would say, oh, they moved away, they moved to a different city. Again, giving us critical information that we would have never known otherwise. When doing a home visit, be open and honest. Let them know your concern or the issue taking place. Let them know about how their lack of participation is worrisome, or how statements that they made online might make you worry about their well-being or mental health. Go with an open mind, as you never know what a family is going through. Many times we have gone on home visits to find that there was a death in the family, a technology issue, students that were temporarily displaced, so many unique circumstances that we could have never imagined. Be warm and approachable. Most of the time, families were very touched by the fact that we took time to visit their home and ask about their children. The students were often very excited to see us, and we were so excited to see them. Another helpful tip, keep a pulse on resources being offered in your school community. I'm in Chandler and often kept an eye out on rent assistance being offered through churches, the city, or other organizations. There are food banks and so many resources that families can benefit from. Also, when doing home visits, we have found the need to make referrals to DCS or the local police department. I can guarantee isn't anyone's preferred type of home visit, but definitely necessary when a child's safety is at stake. Having eyes on a student is quite valuable when we haven't communicated with them in a prolonged amount of time. Now, I am by no means a tech person. Janine can attest to that. But this pandemic has stretched and taught us all how to connect in new ways. One of the greatest discoveries has been virtual lessons and virtual all-school activities. Everyone's comfort level is different, and everyone's site or the rules or mitigation strategies may vary. Therefore, a safe and easy way to deliver classroom lessons is to do it virtually. Loom, Pear Deck, or many of the other virtual platforms that have become popular can reach many classrooms, many grade levels, an entire school, and even the district. I know Janine will discuss this further in the presentation. These platforms can also then lend themselves to create school announcements. We rotated through our administrative team to record announcements. We greeted students, shared important announcements. We included a joke of the day submitted by our own students. We had guest stars on our announcements. So much can be done with just a little bit of creativity and some willing participants. Another way in which these platforms have helped us connect with our students is by announcing and explaining school-wide initiatives. In an effort to keep things somewhat like other years, our school participated in Hope Week. What we would have normally explained at an assembly, we were able to share in a quick video. As you can see, our mascot was our guest star. Students wrote their hope for the year on a Post-it while in their classrooms, and then posted them to banners at the front of our school. Teachers did the same. They posted their hope for the year. Many of the students' hopes included staying safe during this pandemic, hoping that the sickness would go away. It gave us such insight into our school community and how our student and staff were feeling. This was a wonderful experience that we will definitely do in the coming years. Lastly, virtual videos can be used to provide necessary training to teachers and staff. Our site didn't permit us to have in-person staff meetings, but this became the next best thing for trainings that I typically present. Creating looms to present yearly mandatory reporting, self-harm, suicide prevention trainings, it all worked beautifully. Teachers were able to watch it on their own time, and I was able to track who viewed the video afterwards. I think just about everyone went through the Bitmoji office craze, and as fun as they were to create, they actually became quite useful to present Google Form links, videos, games, even welcome back videos for students and parents. The last few strategies and tools that have been helpful to access and connect with families include a more holistic look at family needs. We found many of our families needed the basics, Maslow before Bloom, right? We thought carefully about how we could provide meal/weekend bags to families. Find what mode works best for a community and find a way to make it happen. Please provide materials and resources in different languages if that is needed for your community. I can't express how thankful families have been when they receive a newsletter or resources that have directions in their native tongue. It helps them to trust us as professionals and for them to see that we want to help and support them. Most families that do not speak English, not always, but often are relatively reserved about asking for help and often do not reach out if no one can speak their language. During this pandemic, I have found that a simple phone call goes a long way to further a connection with a family, asking them how they are doing, what we can do to help, and most of all, just listening. Telling them that I would check in with them the following week to see how that idea or resource worked, following through with calling them, gave them something that they could count on, or other words, it built their trust in me. Put that Google Voice number to good work if you're not in your building. It is a fantastic tool to talk or text with parents and students. Referrals to outside resources were a great part of the connections I made during this time. Referrals to food banks, to clothing assistance, to household goods, hotlines, 211, housing. It will all help your families. Now, I have spent this entire time talking about connecting with students and families. That was our sole purpose in this session. And although we didn't get to touch on counselor connections, it's just as important. Perhaps one of the most helpful connections during this pandemic were the ones I made with my fellow Title I colleagues. other like-minded individuals at other title sites. We met virtually every other week and gave ourselves a time and a place to vent, to problem solve, to share resources, and to be together. As professionals, we're a resilient bunch. We work hard, we have big hearts, and often our work leaves us feeling tired with heavy hearts. Reach out to your colleagues, reach out to other counselors in your district. You are not alone, and you are most certainly not an island. And if you're unable to connect with counselors in your own district, join a Facebook group. It's a great virtual community where you will also feel supported and heard. Now let's take a look at some more ideas that will foster connections with students and families.
So it was really important to me when I was starting out this year as an online virtual counselor that my students and my families and my teachers were able to reach me just like if I was in my office down the hall. And I went through a lot of different things about how to do that. And I finally landed on Calendly. So Calendly is an online application that is super intuitive and easy to use. It syncs with my calendar. It sends confirmation emails to me as well as the student or family or teacher, and it allows me in that email to reschedule or cancel. And you can use Calendly if you're meeting on Zoom or Meet or Teams, whatever works for you. So I'll show you how I make it work. Let's take a minute and look at Calendly itself. Your account looks like this, and you can choose to have 30-minute meetings, 15 minutes. So basically you just copy this link and you can paste it in to wherever you want your students or teachers or families to be able to access it. So I had each of my teachers set up in their Google Classroom a counseling connections section. And in that section, I had them put my meeting link so everybody knows where it is. So how it works is like this. Here's the link. Students, families, teachers, just click it. And it takes you to this calendar. And you can choose which day, the students can choose which day to meet with me. For example, if the student wanted to meet with me Wednesday, these are the times that I have available. And it checks with my calendar. And if I have a conflict, it won't show those times. So let's say the student chooses 2 o'clock, click confirm. They put their name, their student email. They can also put their parents' email if they're comfortable with that, or a teacher email. They have to put an email. So, if they didn't have an email, that might be a concern. But even for our younger elementary students, it seems to work out fine. And then down here in this box is where they put what they want to talk about. And then they just click schedule event. And boom, it's good to go. And how they meet, I just have a note over here that we meet on Google Meets, and how I make that easy, they go to Meets, and the join code is always their first name. So that's how I do it. You might have to, work with it a little bit if you're not on Google Meets, but Calendly is most definitely easy to use. Students find it easy to use, and teachers report that it's easy to use as well. So I would recommend looking into it if you're looking for a way to schedule those one-on-one meetings with students, families, or teachers. So in addition to Calendly, another way to reach students that are virtual learners by creating interactive classroom lessons. So, for example, our Chandler Online Academy has over 3,000 students. So there's no way I would be able to reach all of the students live on a regular basis. So I create these interactive and virtual lessons, and I'm able to reach everyone, meeting some of them synchronously and delivering the lessons asynchronously to others. Also for our Title I learners, students that may have unpredictable internet or technical difficulties, if it is presented in an asynchronous format, the student can access that lesson at any time when the internet is available and up and running. So that's another plus for our Title I learners. In these lessons, I use interactive tools. My go-tos right now are Jamboard and Pear Deck. And you'll notice on my intro slide, I always include my email and my Calendly link just so students can get in touch with me easily if needed. let's go through and see what a lesson might look like. So sometimes I put my lessons onto Google Sites, and I do this if I'm thinking of a themed-based lesson grouping. So for example, this lesson group is My Mindful Island. It's all about mindfulness for grades 3 through 6. So I have it organized on this Google site. You'll see on the left, I again have my email link and my schedule a meeting link. I have 4 live lessons that the students can access at this point, and the others I will release in time. And if we go down, I have a link to our virtual calming room that is district calming room. I have a Zen zone with some other links. And then I have just some video links that are related to mindfulness and the lessons that are above. So putting your lessons in a unit like this also makes it easy for students. Here's an example of an individual lesson. If we look through, so we've got just some pieces to the lesson. There's an interactive self-assessment using Pear Deck drawing tool. They can self-assess, are they empathetic? There's a video included. We'll skip through that. And then we dig into the lesson again. So this lesson's about empathy and about understanding others and understanding what it is like to be in someone else's shoes. But first, we have to reflect on what it is like to be in our own shoes. So here's just some classroom discussion. And then the last slide you'll see is interactive once again through Pear Deck, and they can use the art tool to decorate this shoe with text and colors and anything they'd like to explain and show what is it like to be in their shoes. And these shoes allow for discussion, which leads to greater empathy in the class. So virtual classroom lessons are a fantastic way to reach all learners, and the asynchronous delivery is an excellent way to allow students to access that on their own time, so nobody misses the material that you want them to receive. So it's also very important to remember that our Title I learners can still greatly benefit from small groups in the virtual learning environment. I have found that when I'm running virtual small groups, it's important to keep a psychoeducational perspective as the group goes on, mainly because we can't guarantee the confidentiality of the group. It's not the same as if everyone is sitting in my office with the door closed. We can't guarantee who's in the background listening. So I remind students of this every session, to only share things that they're very comfortable with sharing, because again, we cannot guarantee the confidentiality. My data this year has supported groups around anxiety and stress management, resiliency, and coping skills. I've had these groups running throughout the year. How I do this, how I run these groups, I have students sign up through a Google form, and I run the groups through Meets on Google Classroom. So you can see in the bottom left, this group that's upcoming is called Coping Skills to the Rescue. The Meet link is in the banner there. This is my advertisement for the group. It just says what it is, the who, what, when, where. You'll see I have my video explanation for students and families. And I also have a click here link that takes them to the Google form to sign the student up directly. So again, I think groups are a really important part. Our Title I learners can benefit greatly from these small group learning experiences. So just because we're virtual, we shouldn't omit this vital part of our program.
We're so grateful to everyone that was able to join us for our session this morning. We hope that you were able to take some helpful tips and strategies, again, to meet you wherever you are at your site and in your district. We wanted to close with just some food for thought. This is actually the legend of Kintsugi. And it goes like this. A Japanese legend tells the story of a mighty shogun warrior who had broken his favorite tea bowl and sent it away for repairs. When he received it back, the bowl was held together by unsightly metal staples. Although he could still use it, the shogun was disappointed. Still hoping to restore his beloved bowl to its former beauty, he asked a craftsman to find a more elegant solution. The craftsman wanted to try a new technique, something that would add to the beauty of the bowl as well as repair it. So he mended every crack in the bowl with a lacquer mixed with gold. When the tea bowl was returned to the shogun, there were streaks of gold running through it, telling its story, and the warrior thought, adding to its value and beauty. This method of repair became known as kintsugi. Kintsugi, which roughly translates to golden joinery, is a Japanese philosophy that the value of an object or person is not in its beauty, but in its imperfections and its struggle. These challenges are something to celebrate, not something to hide.
So the legend of Kintsugi is a beautiful story that we can use with our Title I learners and all students really to help them embrace the idea that we don't have to be perfect, that all of us come with challenges and struggles and things that we've overcome, but those things make us who we are and make us even more unique and more beautiful on the inside. The video link at the bottom is an excellent video to share with students. So you can use that to explain the legend of Kintsugi and to help students understand this concept.
Thanks again for joining us this morning. The contact information for me and Cynthia is right here on this slide, and we would love to hear from you. Have a wonderful day and a fantastic conference.